will be the recording just started for just for you to know. So Steven Donziger and Chris Moles, who some of you might know already, will introduce themselves, and then we will talk about where are we now and the failure of the two-party system. They will tell us about their thoughts on what they think about it, and then why do we need a general strike and building power together, and what does winning look like, and why resignations. So first, I would like to introduce you all to Emily Collins. Emily is our co-founder, and she will dive deeper into what GS4R is so that you all learn about us today. Thank you again for joining us, and Emily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight. We are in the middle of a storm here, so I might drop off with technical difficulties. If that's the case, don't fret. I will just end it there. I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible. I want to just jump in by reminding everyone of a few things we've all been deeply, deeply indoctrinated to forget. Firstly, workers are the economy. It's working class people that make the lights go on, that heat the homes, that farm, and deliver the food. Workers are not an important part of the economy. Workers are the economy. Workers create all value, not some of it, all of it. If just the truckers decided to strike for a week, the country is shut down. It doesn't function. But if Congress shuts down for a month, we're fine. If billionaires and CEOs take even a year off, we are fine. But 1 month of no nurses or supermarket workers, and you have total chaos. So please, let's all sit with this idea for a moment, this enormous power that we have. So what's missing? What's missing is that we've been strategically divided and politically miseducated. We are living in the most productive period in human history, yet 75% of millennials live paycheck to paycheck. Boomers, our parents' generation, are going homeless at the fastest rate in American history. All while 4 men are worth more than the entire bottom half of America. 4 men versus 150 million struggling Americans. Secondly, change never came through the middle. These are liberal lies that we've been pummeled with for decades to maintain status quo. The Democratic Party are a perfect example of this. They exist to co-opt revolutionary movements. Change doesn't even come from protests, let alone calling your senator or signing a petition. These strategies are designed to fail. Protests have become parades to help us sleep at night. And yes, they help turn a collective feeling into action. But unless that action turns into leverage, nothing will change. Change comes from leverage. Only leverage can force power to make changes that benefit the people. Because true change that benefits the people must come at a cost to the very top. It's a zero-sum game. We really must abandon these traps that tell us that this system can be reformed. It cannot, which brings us to the next question. Why can't it be reformed? Simple. Our democracy is fake. If I forced you to choose between two different brands of ketchup, it's still ketchup. The double irony is that today they're probably made in the same factory. It's just the label that's different. Our politicians have been wholeheartedly corrupted. But who corrupted them and how? The corporations corrupted them through lobbying. And who owns these corporations? The same people that own the media, the same people that own the fossil fuel companies, and the same people that charge hundreds of dollars for insulin that costs $12 in Canada. A general strike is inevitable because the material conditions will continue to deteriorate while corporations, controlled by billionaires, are in bed with the state. Trump and Musk will not deliver a single thing for the masses, and when people can't put food on the table, they will figure out real quick that they've been scammed. 2023 was a record year for both unions and strikes. We're so proud to have the legend Chris Smalls with us here. I suggest you go and watch his movie Union if you haven't already. The unions with the infrastructure already exist. The will to strike already exists. It's here. We've seen it. The rail workers, the longshoremen, UAW, and Boeing, even Hollywood. 500,000 people went on strike last year. If the 10 biggest unions in America got together to strike for a week, we could get whoever we wanted to resign. Nixon resigned for less than what these genocidal criminals are guilty of. The general strike for resignation's goal is to create a vehicle to deliver a political missile, to disrupt status quo by mobilizing the workers behind a bigger goal than just better salaries. We are looking for accomplices to help us achieve this goal. Thank you so much, Melly.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for this introduction. And now, as Emily just mentioned, we are very happy to have with us Stephen Dossinger and Chris Moles. Thank you for taking the time to being here with us, Stephen and Chris. And please tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, your work, and why are you here today with General Strike for Resignations. Stephen?
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for joining us. You know, with the journey I've been on, I voted in now 11 elections, presidential elections in the United States. I've seen quite a bit of recent modern history and participated in, this 4-year event that seems to never really produce the kind of meaningful change for the majority of the people that is needed to improve people's ability to live and to get basic necessities of life like healthcare and food and housing, and opportunity. So I really support this effort. I support all creative efforts by activists like those who are behind this general strike for resignations, to really create vehicles independent of the two-party system that truly can deliver power to people who are not tied to what I would call the corporate sector or the oligarchy that exists in America. So, while there was a time when the Democratic Party in our history, thinking particularly the New Deal, did to a certain extent respond to worker interests, we are not living in one of those times. And I think the fact that the recent election in the United States, the party was resoundingly, lost ground with the working class to a party that represents, the corporate sector, shows how really rotten the two-party system has become and how there really is no alternative in that system for working people. So I'm really happy to be on this call. I see this, I don't really feel like I or those of us behind this have the answer, certainly not all the answers, but I think we are now really trying to use this as an opportunity to explore possibilities, alternative structures, to try to, figure out how to move forward and make our society better. We obviously are dealing with many, many crises right now, the climate crisis being one of them, foreign policy, the slaughter of civilians, and what legal experts believe is a genocide being committed with our tax dollars, in Gaza and more broadly in the Middle East. There's no party now in the United States that isn't complicit with this and is not supporting it. No party that can win a national election. So we have to figure out a way, as Emily said, to create leverage on the system and create a vehicle such that we can, we can create a political system that responds to the needs of the working class, the needs of the majority of people. So that's why I'm here, and I'm really happy to contribute whatever I can and listen also to those who have joined us, your thoughts, ideas, etc.
Thanks so much, Stephen, and your support is really valuable for all of us. And now we want to introduce Chris.
Hey everybody, what's going on? I'm glad to be here sharing this space with everybody tonight, especially post-election after what we just witnessed and what we just experienced, which to some people is still confusing. A lot of people are lost right now. A lot of people are in disarray. They don't know what direction to go, and for you to take your time tonight to join us to find some clarity and to find a space and to find a home. I think this is a start of something that's going to be very special for the future. So I want to say thank you all for joining us tonight. For those who don't know about me, my name is Chris Smalls, the founder of the Amazon Labor Union, first union in American history for Amazon workers, representing 8,300 plus members in Staten Island. We formed our union in 2021. took about 11 months and successfully beat $1 trillion company, who you all know, Amazon, in 2022 on April Fool's Day. No April Fool's though. So that being said, yeah, when we first started, I had a smaller group than what we have here tonight. So I'm really excited because things, we got to start from somewhere, and planting seeds. We're all about to be seed planters for the next few years. And I'm going to talk more about the initiative, what I hope to see throughout this vehicle, which, we're going to talk about a Labor Party later on in this conversation. But, once again, I'm here because, once again, we watched the two-party system fail us for decades in this country. I'm only in my 30s, and I'm not like Steven. I haven't been around for many presidential, or voted in many presidential candidates. I voted for one, and that was Obama back in 2008. I was fresh out of high school. And honestly, yeah, my grandfather, definitely been a Democrat for decades. He ushered me to the voting bowl. And that's how I cast my vote. And that was the last time I ever voted, to be honest with you. For other reasons, most of it is life. I got married at a young age, had children at a young age, so I had to go get a job and support my family. And not just one job, I had to get 2, maybe 3 jobs at a time. We're talking, early 20 years old before I started working at Amazon. And then I got to Amazon around 25 years old. I opened up 3 warehouses for this company, poured my blood, sweat, and tears into this company for 5 years. And then I was fired in the middle of the pandemic. For those who don't remember, I was fired 4 years ago in the height of the pandemic in New York City, being the epicenter of the world. And that right there, it radicalized me and changed my life forever. Like many others, we were deemed essential workers. Amazon put a label on us before even caring about our own health and safety. They didn't provide the PPE. They didn't provide the necessary safety protocols. And as a supervisor, which I was for 4.5 years, didn't even provide the policies for me to relay the messages to the workers. So instead, what I did was organize a walkout, which cost me my job. And I do not regret it because I cost the company $4 billion. The next day, they had to hand deliver PPE. So Emily is right. Stephen is right. We are the economy, and we have the power. We may not know the value of our power until shit hits the fan, but I can go off my own experience, my own testimony, that if I can cost Amazon $4 billion just by speaking up about health and safety, I think anybody that's working at any industry and any company can do the same exact thing. And not only that, uh, realizing that we all are deemed essential workers, well, the definition of essential means that we're a necessity. That means that they need us. And if they need us, they need to pay us like like we deserve. We need to be treated with the respect and dignity that we deserve. And if they do not, our ultimate power is always to withhold our labor. That's what a general strike is. The easiest thing to do in a general strike is to do nothing. And that's exactly what we plan to do, is stay home and do absolutely nothing. And I promise you, billionaires from all different 4 corners of the world will tremble in their boots because they cannot do what we do every day as everyday working class people. So that's why I'm here tonight, and I'm excited about the conversation, and I'm looking forward to answering questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Chris. And we encourage everybody to, I mean, whoever wants to turn on their camera so that we have that energy and that we all see each other's faces and we get that sense of community. But we thank you all for joining. And Stephen and Chris, I have another question for you. We have 3 minutes each person. Can you please put into your own words what just happened with the recent election in the US and the failure of the two-party system? And what do you think that what's the need for a Labor Party in the US? Stephen, we'll go with you first.
Thank you. I always like it when Chris goes first because I love following up. He's so Chris, by the way, I love you, man. It's so good to see you.
You too, brother. You too.
And thanks for what you do. I'm inspired by you. I'll say this: my analysis is pretty simple. And I'll go back to being kind of the old guy here, having voted in 11 elections. My first election I voted in was 1980. I voted for Jimmy Carter when he lost to Ronald Reagan. And at that point, when Reagan got elected, people thought, oh my God, this is a right-wing revolution. This is going to ruin America. I mean, that's what the progressives thought. But what's happened from 1980 to now is we've had a paradigmatic shift of both parties way to the right. So today's Democratic Party, honestly, is probably more pro-corporate and conservative than the Republicans were when Ronald Reagan came to power and scared the F out of everybody because he was going to move things to the right. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So we now have the two parties I would describe as one is has extreme fascist tendencies or authoritarian tendencies, the Republicans. They're completely bought by the corporate sector. And then the Democratic Party is also heavily, I would say, controlled by the corporate sector, not quite wholly owned like the Republicans are, but still very tilted toward the corporate side, which is why in the recent election, I think the Democrats lost because basically, the way the messaging was and the policies were, there was no real, emphasis on things like minimum wage, put more money in Social Security, strengthen unions, build union power, build worker power, strengthen the right to strike, create a national healthcare system. The basic things that most civilized societies have now, we don't have in this country. And since the Democratic Party wasn't addressing it, and to me, they left a complete opening to the Republicans to basically con the working class into saying, well, we'll take care of you. And, the focus on the border and the immigration was all, to me, a big diversionary tactic that really played into the economic frustrations that most people were feeling. And the Democrats just weren't delivering. They left the opening. Trump, I think, through various rather clever manipulations, got a lot of working class people to defect to the Republican Party. I've watched this kind of thing happen over and over again. Even Obama, who came into power with great hope, ended up being very heavily corporate. He took the public option right off the table at the beginning of his administration for a national health care plan. And and Kamala was out, campaigning with Liz Cheney. She was getting the endorsement of the neocons who basically were backing all these wars that this country had been in since 9/11. There were several countries we've invaded, Iraq, one of them, Syria, Libya, Sudan. And there's all this warmongering going on. And that's where they are now. We see it now with the inability of the Biden administration to, put any kind of even minor break on the extremist behavior of the Israeli government. So, I just can't go there anymore. Like it's fundamentally flawed. It's structurally flawed. And I don't think it's really fixable, certainly not in my lifetime. And, the more I think about it, you have brave people like Cornel West, Jill Stein, Marianne Williamson, and others that Chris and I know many of these people who really tried to chart an independent path and move the needle on the conversation, and the system wouldn't let them in and wouldn't let them. There were no debates. There was no primary in the Democratic Party. There's no airing of these issues, of these questions, of this information. So the two-party system, to me, is not going to get the job done. And to me, it's really it's not democracy, guys. I mean, voting between these two extremely narrow choices once every 4 years is just not democracy. Not to mention the fact that often the winner of the popular vote doesn't even take power in this country. We don't live in a democracy. We have some liberal democratic elements, but man, we can't even create a system where the person who gets the most votes wins. So, or is guaranteed to win the election. So, it's flawed. And that's why I really love working with Chris, because Chris has a vision. I mean, I know, Chris, you're going to talk about this a bit, but, starting a new political party, a Labor Party, is the kind of idea we need to really get behind. The general strike idea. the kind of idea we need to get behind. Why was there a general strike in France, a year plus ago that had enormous impact on that society, enormous levels of participation? And not only is there not a general strike in the United States, the idea of a general strike doesn't even exist. If you walk down the street and say, hey, what do you think about the idea of a general strike? You do that in France, we're like, oh, everyone knows what a general strike is. Here, people don't even understand what it is. So, part of what the effort is, the general strike idea, is to put out this idea and plant the seed, so people understand that we can build the power, and take this to a place where I think we really can have an enormous impact on our society in a positive way.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Stephen. Thanks for that. And I think, Chris, very quick, why do you think that we need a Labor Party in the US? And what do you have any news for us? Anything that's going on that you want to share with us?
Yeah. I mean, I have a long list, but I'm gonna paraphrase it as much
Very
as
quick.
best as possible. I just want to piggyback over what Stephen is talking about, this two-party system. What happened? And I can tell you, just for being on the ground as much as I am, both parties, as much as I hate to say it, the Republican Party, Stephen is right. They are better organizers than the Democratic Party. This is sad to say because we're supposed to be the party that's representing the progressives and the people on the left and the squad and all of that stuff. And we watched at how they caved into corporate interests and to the war machine. And the red line was genocide. The bottom line, the Democrats are so far disconnected from working class people that they can't even realize the message that's clearly in front of them, that the younger population, the younger generation in this country has had enough. It's mind-blowing to me that they watched Columbia University set off encampments that resonated worldwide, not just here in this country. I'm talking about worldwide. I visited them in person, been on the ground from here to Texas to some of the campuses that was being attacked the worst by the police, all the way up to Toronto, to Vancouver, to Ireland, to London. I've been to these campuses. I met with these students. I taught teachings with the group of students. I've been to Columbia University on day one, and I've seen how it resonated throughout the younger generation. I've seen the rallies. I've been a part of rallies, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 200,000, 500,000 in London, 1,800,000 people come out for Palestine. Why did the Democrats not listen to the people? It's simple. It's simple. They are disconnected. And this election proved every bit of that. How the hell do you spend $20 million on celebrities? You gave Beyonce, the billionaire, $10 million. You gave Oprah, the billionaire, another $1 million to talk to us, to the working class, telling us it's joy and happiness. When you got unions standing behind them. Now, I don't know what union you're in, but I know my union doesn't rock with that. We're not going to be standing behind billionaires with our union signs talking about joy and happiness, talking to working class people. To me, that's crossing the picket line. I don't know how much money or how much union dues are going to the Democratic Party, but if you have union dues are tied to the Democratic Party, you are supporting genocide. And I said that months ago, and of course I've been attacked for it. I lost 5,000 followers since the election is over. Guess what? Just like I lost 10,000 last year over Palestine, I don't give a fuck. The bottom line is we got to stand on business right now as the working class people. Whether you're a politician, whether you're a union, a major union, you have to take a stance. You can't play the fence. And that's what we've been seeing with these parties for the last 6, 7 decades, that these parties play the fence and unions, unfortunately, they ride the wave. we can't do it anymore. So the reason why I want to bring back, because we did have a Labor Party in the U.S. It dissolved in the 1970s. You know why? The same thing. They attacked it. The two-party system attacked the Union Party, the Labor Party, the Party for the Working Class, and forced them to dissolve by infighting and a whole bunch of other stuff. Who cares? You know why? Because it's back now. We're going to lead the way. And this time, we're going to put the unions in a position to make a decision. Are you with the working class or you're not? Are you going to continue supporting the Democratic Party who has utterly failed us and failed the working class? Are you going to get on board with the working class? Here's an opportunity to have a party that's led by unions. And not just led by unions, led by everyday American people. This party will be absolutely unique. It'll be absolutely different than what we've seen in other labor parties in other parts of the world that exist. But it will be a party that everybody will feel welcomed in. And it'll be a party that'll be a way to not only escape the system, but to build a system that we rightfully deserve right now and have laws that represent the 21st century, not 1945, where our president, like Joe Biden, can use an act from 1945 to stop the railroad strikers from getting sick days. This no longer will happen. With the Labor Party, we'll have laws that'll make it easier for people to join unions. We have laws that'll hold billionaires accountable and absolutely tax the rich. But most importantly, we'll have working class people making decisions for everyday Americans here. And that's what we need in this country. And I hope that, people get on board with it.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Chris. Wow. And I hope that everybody who's here, will support you, will support the Labor Party in the U.S. Yes, and so just want to remind everybody that if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We are looking at them and we will ask those questions later. So just we want to talk a little bit more about what does building power sound like and why do we need a general strike in the U.S. Very briefly, Stephen, Chris, tell us, and what could we achieve with a general strike? I know you've talked a little bit about this, but let's elaborate more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go first on this one. Why do we need a general strike? Well, we're well past due. We're overdue for one in this country for sure. Stephen already brought up France, and I'm glad he did because it was recent, most recent one that I can think of. I think India did one as well. That was really powerful. A lot of countries in the global south go on general strikes all the time as well. But France, let me talk about France because I actually met the guy. I actually met the union who led that. And I said union because the unions led that general strike. The CGT from France, one of the largest unions in the country. Shout out to them. Communist Party, Communist Union. The leader of that union, specific union, let me tell you how the strike went down. First, the union shut off sanitation. So there was no unions picking up the garbage, and they made sure they were strategic about it. They targeted the areas where the politicians live. The most smartest thing to do. So they stopped picking up their trash. And let me tell you, when your trash pile up for 3 weeks outside your home, that's a hazardous material. So they stopped picking up their trash. So the politicians they doubled down. Next thing you know, the unions cut off their electricity. Game over. Game over. There's nothing you can do. So they won their strike just by doing those two things. Two different unions. That's all it took. Now, it looked bigger because there was 1 million people in the street, but it was only two unions behind it. And then they prosecuted the union and 10,000 of the union's members. They charged them in court, just like they do over here when they attack our protesters. They did the same thing in France. 10,000 of the union's members. But guess what? Dismissed. You know what I said when I met the president? I said, do it again. What the fuck are they going to do? Shut their shit off again. If they're going to charge you and 10,000 members, they got to replace them. They're not going to be able to do that. So know your worth, know your power, and stand on business is what I'm saying. We can't fold just because we get threatened by the governments, get threatened by these politicians or billionaires, because they cannot do what we do. Jeff Bezos can't pack or pick faster than me. I can tell you that right now. I'll challenge him any day of the week. And I know that. Same thing with my lead organizers who've been working at Amazon for almost 9 years. Jeff Bezos wouldn't last one fucking day. So when they come for us, we got to know our power, and our power is our labor. And that's why we need a general strike. Because if we all went on general strike for one day, every corporation, every billionaire, every politician in the country will be blowing up our phones trying to negotiate what we need and what our demands are.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Chris. Speaking some truth here. And now, Stephen, very quick, why do we need a general strike and what could we achieve with a general?
Well, I just want to say, listening to Chris, that's the level of integrity and strength that you simply do not see in any, every other elected official in the two parties. I mean, you don't see that. Like, why isn't the best political talent, Chris or people like Chris Smalls, getting elected and leading our society? And that's why we need a general strike. Because we need to imagine a new kind of power, a new kind of person getting elected to office and getting the political power we need to make the changes that respond to the needs of the majority. So a general strike is a great mechanism to really organize and mobilize a huge cross-section of people in this country to create the kind of coalition across race, ethnicity, gender, political viewpoint that can really challenge a power structure that's controlled by a tiny elite. It's like a great organizing tool to start this process and really pick up the pieces after this election. And before I stop this segment, I want to just mention one thing. You know, a lot of people don't know their history. Many do. I don't mean to suggest people on this call don't know their history. But, you know, what was always impressed me was there used to be a socialist party in the United States that got millions of votes every election. The main candidate was in the late 1800s and early 1900s. The Socialist Party candidate was a man named Eugene Debs, who was a labor organizer, getting millions of votes. They concocted some case, put him in prison, and he ran for president in prison and got millions of votes. Where did this party go? The fact is, the system tried to create rules that locked up half the labor leaders in this country of that era. And the end result is now, 100 plus years later, there is no viable socialist party like there was then that's capable of winning a national election. Just like there's no Labor Party. So, we need to use these mechanisms to build our own power. The greatest sin in life, someone once told me, is not to use the power you have. Well, a lot of people don't know the power they have, because there's so little collective organizing going on. Like, the real power comes from the collective, comes from the group, comes from the solidarity. So, I love this idea. Chris, I love and salute you for wanting to organize a labor party. I'll do whatever I can to help. And the whole general strike thing tied into the Labor Party, I think, is a great thing to focus on as people pick up the pieces after the election.
Yeah, man, thank you. And Stephen, this is gonna be the party that pardons you on day one. That's what we're gonna be. Just to let you know that we're gonna be the party to do that. And I just want to say this before we move on, because Stephen brought it up. We do know a lot of the presidential candidates that ran against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Trump, and it was sad because these are people we respect and we organize with. I've done many events with all of them, and I watched because I knew they were going to, obviously, of course, they started movements that we adore them for doing this and standing up for Palestine and the people of Gaza. But I knew that the labor unions weren't going to get behind them. And that was the problem. That's their only kryptonite of third parties, is that they would never be able to get major unions behind them. Because once again, once the AFL-CIO once the AFL-CIO signs off to the Democratic Party, all the major unions underneath that umbrella, which is 60 of them, they all go the same direction, no matter what. And that is the number one problem that we have in this country when it comes to major unions, is that no matter what, right or wrong, they ride the blue wave into the depths of just, once again, creating and supporting genocide. And third parties would never be able to thrive without labor union endorsements. So once again, this Labor Party is to put a lynch point on enforcing labor unions to join this party, but also third party candidates is giving us more options to have on the ballot.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Chris. And for everyone on the chat, we have put a form there for you to stay in contact, and it has the options of how you can support us. And then we just have a very quick question for you, Chris. Why resignations?
Yep. Melly, I think we went over time a little bit. Wait, we'll get into that in the Q&A, Chris. I think it's better we keep going and let the audience get involved.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. We just went a little bit over. So I'm going to just do a really brief wrap up about GS4R, since people in the chat are asking how they can get connected. We have the form that Melly just stated. It's in the chat several times. Please fill it out. It's really simple. It's not just about supporting us. It's also about how to get involved. It also has on there about the Labor Party if you're interested in more information as we keep going with this. Basically, we're starting to build some solutions here with GS4R, and we need your help. That's why we're doing this town hall as well. It's to get as many people involved in all of the different things that we're creating. We can only do this if we do this together. So this is our brief short and long-term strategy. Very, very quickly, 10-city labor teach-in tour with Chris, hopefully headlining that throughout the United States in Q2 of 2025, potentially March and April of next year. We need different communities in different cities that can get people together, to bring Chris to these cities, to teach people about their labor organizing power. This could potentially be connected to unions in those cities, hopefully, and also doesn't have to be. This 10-city labor teach-in tour would develop into a conference that we want to put together. This conference is serving the purpose of discussing outcomes that we'd like to achieve from a general strike. So we don't feel adept in this group to create policies that we want to demand from the general strike other than resignations. So we need this to be a very communal effort from people who are interested to come together for the strike to figure out what we can achieve together. The next thing is the development of the Labor Party, as Chris spoke about or mentioned. That also is something that we need to do as a collective, with a group of powerful people that these two parties are not going to give third party people the opportunity to run and beat them and to build power. So we need as many people involved in this as possible. And the final step would be to initiate our first national general strike, obviously with our outcomes and goals in mind. So that's it on my side. If you have any more questions about that, just put it in the chat. We're going to open up the Q&A now. I've been writing down some questions that have been coming along from the chat, and I'll just ask the first one from before. It's just directed towards Chris, and it was, how did you learn to organize? Chris, if you want to just keep this like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I think that, but it's great to have a little background of how you got this will and gumption. And also thanks for your strength in your speaking because it's so powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, how did I learn to organize? Man, that's a loaded question. But to be honest with you, I was a rapper, an independent rapper in my high school days, in my college days, and I think that was a skill set because this is before social media. It's what it is. There was no Instagram, there was no TikTok, there was no Twitter. Well, I think Twitter's been around probably about 08, 09. So yeah, I mean, back then when I was organizing my rap shows, I had to go to college campuses and talk to people face to face. I used to print out my own flyers for my own shows. As an independent artist, if I wanted a venue to be filled up, I had to bring people in. I used to go to the mall every weekend. I used to go to my high school, stand in the hallways. I used to skip class a lot. Can't tell my mom that though, but I used to do what I had to do to get people to come out, and I think that was a skill set that I developed. Not really organizing with any political or unions and anything like that, but that skill set, being a people's person, that's just something that I always been my whole life, pretty much. People that hung around me, people that hang around me, people that been around me, that know me, they just know that I'm like the chillest guy in the room. I like to, just have fun and make everybody feel good. And um, that's a skill set that I pretty much developed in Amazon as well as a supervisor, just trying to make everybody's job easier. I didn't have no power to hire or fire, but I oversee my department, and doing that, you became family. You spend 60 hours a week with your colleagues and your coworkers. So just developing relationships throughout the years with Amazon workers, and when I got fired, Amazon didn't know the worth of me. They didn't know that I opened up not just JFK 8, the building we unionized, but two other buildings that had 5,000 workers as well. And I trained thousands of these workers. So I was very popular within the company. I seen the growth and productivity of Amazon from 2015 to 2020. And I was a very big piece of that. So these skill sets helped me organize when I got fired. Of course, I had to learn how to play chess with $1 trillion company, and who the hell knows how to do that. But I can tell you this, it wasn't money. I had a GoFundMe, and the day we won, we had $2.50 in our account. We beat Amazon with less than $100,000. So it wasn't money that got us to the victory. It was absolutely people power. People coming up, showing up every day, supporting your brothers and sisters on the picket line, supporting your people while they're in the building organizing. Me being outside as a presence, I set up a tent outside of the building for over 300 days, the same building that fired me publicly. That alone just broke down a lot of barriers that people had, and I was able to answer questions face to face. So the best thing I can tell you is people's power. That's how we learn from one another. We learn from our communities, and we have to support one another, and we can overcome any opposition that we have.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. This is another question, maybe for Chris, but we are general strike for resignations. One of the questions I think to help clarify would be why resignation?
Okay.
Or Stephen wants to answer
Yeah, I'm about
this.
to say, you want to take that?
Go ahead, you go. I'll follow up.
Well, honestly, I mean, yeah, a lot of people ask that question, why resignations and not just like abolish the system, for my abolitionists. Um, well, we in America and we are behind the 8 ball. I can tell you, we can't even mention communism in this country, which is crazy to me because I go to communist countries all the time and learn so much. And it's amazing to me that these communist countries that have been unionized against Amazon for over a decade. But yeah, I'm the first American president to ever step foot over there. So when I mean that we're so far behind our history, as Stephen mentioned earlier, to even mention general strike, that's a scary thought to people. People gonna probably curse us out just for mentioning to them, right? Uh, think about union density in this country. It's less than 6% in the private sector, less than 10% in the public sector, and it's still on a decline because all the jobs that are being created now are ununionized jobs. And then we have the threat of AI that's going to wipe out 50% of American jobs in the next 3 to 5 years. And people think that's like a hoax or something. I'm like, are you serious? You got to wake up. Like, corporations love to save themselves money, and the best thing they could do is replace you with a robot or AI. That is it. That is their goal, the end game. And that's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years unless unions don't become the shield for the working class people and make contracts where they can't replace our jobs. We already seen it with SAG-AFTRA, but here's the thing: resignations is just, that's just the starting point. We got to start somewhere, but I don't think we end there. Resignations is a way to make people feel comfortable about this vessel. But the most important thing, we're going to get out of this system. That's the only way we're going to save our democracy in this country, is to escape the two-party system. And we got to start somewhere by calling the politicians who are in power out now. And the way we do that is by forcing them to resign over a general strike, by bringing people together. And if they don't listen to us, we show them what we have to do, and that's what hold our labor.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And couldn't agree more. We had a couple questions in the chat, but I wanted to direct something to Stephen that was asked there, and I think I'll maybe say it a little bit more clearly. One of the questions was, as Stephen said, people don't know what the fuck a general strike is. What are the best and clearest, most succinct ways to describe a general strike and its goals so that folks will want to get involved? I think we touched base on this in the short and long-term goals of what GS4R is, basically stating that we don't know exactly what those goals are yet until we get together with more people. But Stephen, I don't know if you wanna answer that briefly.
Well, I'd answer that by saying, look, the ideal thing that would be generated by a successful general strike would be to bring the national economy to a virtual standstill, as happened in France for several days. It doesn't mean everything gets shut down, but enough people withhold their labor such that you generate an enormous amount of political power. You know, there was a kind of a minor example of this in New York in 2011 with Occupy Wall Street. Like, there was a massive protest in New York over, you know, the power of Wall Street that really shook New York City and really, you know, significant parts of the United States. And it was kind of a very, I would say, a smaller version of the vision for this. Now, this isn't just going to happen. This has to be organized and the power has to be built, and it's going to take some time. But let's start with the vision of what could be. And I think the you know, to bring an economy to a standstill, even for a day or 2 days or a week, is really going to create dynamics that are going to allow significant achievements to take place in terms of policy. And, you know, what are the policies? I mean, to me, we could, you know, this is probably not the best forum to discuss the specifics, but like at a minimum, let's have an economy where worker rights are protected, wages, people can actually work for a living wage, everybody gets health care, and our criminal justice system functions in a way that's fair and doesn't over incarcerate, you know, massive amounts of people, particularly people of color and minority communities. And let's just start with the basics. And on top of that, throw in a real national plan to transition to a clean energy economy so we can save the damn planet. Okay. So there's certain obvious policy areas that need to be addressed that the two parties are failing to address completely, not only failing to address, preventing the rest of us from addressing them. So, I think the general strike mechanism is a really important vehicle. I think the Labor Party, Chris's organizing, is another really important vehicle, but all have the same goal, which is to create enough political power so we can make the obvious changes that need to be made to our society so the majority of people can have a better standard of living and we can live in a more just and sustainable world. It's not rocket science, guys, and we know that. Like, it's out there. Other countries are doing it. Other countries are doing it. They want us to either not know about it or us to believe it cannot happen here. They want people to get demoralized. So our job is to do the opposite, is to really build solidarity, build power, build energy, and build hope, and off of that really accomplish some super concrete things.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stephen. That was great. That was exactly it. One thing that was also asked in the chat was if we are building the general strike, if we're building the general strike in conjunction with the Labor Party, or is it going to be nonpartisan?
Say it again. What was the question?
Is the general strike you want to plan tied to the Labor Party, or will it be nonpartisan? That's the question.
Can I answer that one?
Yes.
I mean, this is just my personal viewpoint. The general strike is nonpartisan. I mean, you're a Democrat, Republican, socialist, whatever. You want to join this general strike and get down with what it's about? Come. Like, we want to really cut across class lines, economic lines, all lines that really divide people in our society. However, a general strike in and of itself is not going to get us to where we got to get. We still need political parties to organize that power to win elections and to implement the changes that need to be implemented. And I would say the Labor Party that Chris is envisioning is a really beautiful way to do that. But like, there's other things out there that you can also get involved in. And so the answer is it's not tied to any particular party. It is its own thing designed to generate political energy into which it can flow into more organized kinds of party mechanisms that can win elections and achieve power. I personally love the Labor Party, and I have great affection for Chris, and I have tremendous trust in his vision and his leadership and his integrity. So I'm down with the Labor Party. But whether you're down with the Labor Party or some other thing, come to the general strike.
Right. Yeah. Couldn't have been said even better. Honestly, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely nonpartisan for the general strike. The Labor Party should be the one leading the general strike. That's the goal. But if it doesn't have to be, it could. I really want the party to once again represent everyday people. We organized in Staten Island, which is considered Trump Island, aka Staten Island, the red borough, the only red borough out of the 5. And for us to do that, we couldn't go over there talking about, we all support Bernie Sanders. So we had to stay focused on who's the common enemy, which is Amazon and billionaires, the 1% class. And I think the general strike, this is not going to be a sprint. This is something we're building for the next 3 to 4 years. I saw that the president of UAW, Sean Fain, he called the general strike in 2028. That's good. I'm glad that he did call one. Now, are they actually going to do it? That's another thing. That's the problem is if the president or the Democrat elites call him up, and they already done, they're going to tell him shut it down. We just saw it. We just saw it during the election when they did with the ILWU. The longshoremen went on strike, all the ports, right? They all shut down for 3 days. And then President Biden called the president of the union and said, We have Kamala running for office come to the table right now, and they gave them a tentative agreement, not a contract, a TA. Zip it up. So this is how the Democrats control the unions, because they endorse them, they give them their union dues, they got them at all the rallies, but the Labor Party is not going to do that. We're not going to get something for nothing anymore. We're not going to endorse politicians that don't have some legislator in black and white to better the working class. Even without having a contract, and this is the last point I'll make, my union doesn't even have a bargaining order, right? We won. We all watched it. If you haven't watched the movie Union, plug. But if you haven't watched it, if you've been under a rock, we beat Amazon fair and square, no matter how you cut it. Workers, ordinary workers beat Amazon, and Amazon held us in court and still got me in court for 2.5 years, 3 years now in federal court, and we can't even get a bargaining order to negotiate a contract. But even without a contract, that didn't stop me from going to draft the New York State Warehouse Protection Act and got it passed. I did that. I went and protested in Albany alongside Jessica Ramos and other unions, but I helped them draft a bill that took almost 2 years to pass. But when it got passed, it not only protects Amazon workers in New York, it protects all warehouse workers. That's something that we got in return. And if politicians are not willing to do that, we got to get them the hell out. Better than, we got to force them to resign. It's that simple.
Thanks so much, Chris. And I know we ran out of time, so we want to thank you both, and we want to just get the last minutes of this call, Stephen and Chris. I know, Chris, you just gave us your final remarks, but Stephen, what would you like to say, and any call to action here?
Well, I just want to thank everyone for participating. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We've taken that step tonight, and I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud to participate in this, and do what I can to make it succeed. I'm super excited about what could happen out of this, and I'm super motivated by the work that those who have put this general strike for resignations together have done. You, Melissa, Emily, Tommy, Jared, others. Love you guys. And, Chris, no need to even say more about Chris's tremendous leadership in our society. My Lord, I wish you could run as a national leader right now and get elected. I trust you, and I love your leadership, and you fight your ass off, and you're not going to sell anybody out. And I have tremendous respect for you. And that's exactly the kinds of damn people we need in office. And, I sort of question, well, why are you pushing for resignations? Because what we really want to create is systemic change. But, the more I think about it, these individuals in power, like Chris just described, they're always cutting deals at the expense of the working class because they can maintain their positions. And we have to find people like Chris and others who can actually get the power and not sell people out when push comes to shove. So, I'm super jacked about this. Let's really get to work and make it happen.
Wow, we're all very energized by you and Chris and everything you had to say. So thank you. Again, the form to stay in contact with us is in the chat. If not, please follow us on Instagram, send us a DM, and also our website is generalstrikeforresignations.com. If you have anything to share, how you can help us, just fill out the form, send us your email, send us a DM, and yes, we will stay in contact, and we'll definitely continue working hard for general strike next year, and to also support Chris and Stephen on their work. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is very special. And yes, thanks to the GS4R team, and we'll continue to be here.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.